Captain Yuna Choi stood on the bridge of the Meridian's edge, staring at the massive station floating in the distance. The Nexus station looked like a small moon, spinning slowly against the backdrop of stars and the angry red glow of the neutron star it orbited. She had been here many times before, always escorting human diplomats to meet with the Galactic Council. Today felt different. Today felt wrong. Captain, Ambassador Dae Kim's shuttle has docked with the station, Lieutenant Juan Park reported from his tactical station. His voice was steady, but Yuna could hear the tension underneath. Everyone felt it, acknowledged. Keep our sensors active. I want to know if anything moves out there, Yuna said. She turned to look at the young officer. And Juan, make sure our engines are ready for immediate departure. Juan looked up, surprised. Captain, are you expecting trouble? Yuna didn't answer right away. She had learned to trust her instincts over 20 years of service. Those instincts were screaming at her now. Just do it, Lieutenant. Inside the Nexus station, Ambassador Dae Kim walked through the long corridors toward the council chambers. Dr. Mira Song walked beside him, carrying data pads with information about human colony activities. The station was busy as always, with aliens from dozens of species moving about their business. But today there were more guards than usual. Armed soldiers from the Vrelian Empire stood at every intersection, their dark armor gleaming under the artificial lights. There are a lot of troops here today, Mira whispered to the ambassador. Dae Kim nodded slowly. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many council sessions. They want to intimidate us. They've been doing this more and more lately. What do you think they want this time? Nothing good, Dae Kim replied. The restrictions keep getting worse. First they limited where we could explore, then they capped our military size. Last month they demanded access to all our research facilities. I don't know what's left for them to take. They reached the grand doors of the council chamber. The doors opened slowly, revealing the massive circular room inside. The council members sat in elevated seats arranged in a circle, looking down at the small platform in the center where Dae Kim would stand. High Arbiter Quinla, a tall alien with blue skin and 3 eyes, sat in the highest seat. To her right was Counselor Thexvar, leader of the Vrelian Empire. He was the one Dae Kim worried about most. The Vrelians had always seen humanity as a threat, though humans had never done anything to provoke them. Ambassador Dae Kim of Earth, Quinla's voice echoed through the chamber. You stand before the Galactic Council to receive our judgment on humanity's recent actions. Dae Kim felt his stomach tighten. Judgment, this wasn't supposed to be a trial. This was supposed to be a routine diplomatic meeting. He stepped onto the platform and Mira stayed behind at the entrance. High Arbiter, I was not informed that this would be a judgment session. What actions are you referring to? Thexvar leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. Do not play innocent, human. Your species has been expanding too quickly. You've been building ships beyond your allowed quota. You've been developing weapons technology without council approval. You have ignored our restrictions and shown your true aggressive nature. Those are false accusations, Dae Kim said firmly. Every ship we've built has been reported. Every colony has been approved. We have followed every rule you've imposed on us, no matter how unfair. Unfair? Thexvar stood up, his voice rising. We have been generous with your primitive species. We allowed you into the council when you barely had faster-than-light travel. We have tolerated your emotional outbursts and your violent tendencies, and this is how you repay us? Dae Kim felt anger building in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Violent tendencies? Humanity has not started a single conflict since joining the council. We have been peaceful neighbors to every species we've encountered. Peace born from weakness, another counselor said, but weakness that could turn to aggression at any moment. Your species is dangerous. Your emotions make you unstable. Your history is filled with wars and destruction. That history is behind us, Dae Kim argued. We learned from our mistakes. We grew, we changed. Isn't that what civilization is supposed to be about? Quinla raised a hand, silencing the other counselors. The council has made its decision, Ambassador. Humanity poses a long-term threat to galactic stability. Therefore, we are implementing new restrictions. Effective immediately, all human colonies beyond the Sol system must be surrendered to council administration. All human military vessels must be decommissioned. And all humans will undergo a behavioral modification program to remove your aggressive tendencies. The chamber fell silent. Dae Kim stared at the High Arbiter, unable to believe what he had just heard. They wanted humanity to give up everything. They wanted to change who humans were at a genetic level. This wasn't justice. This was slavery. No, Dae Kim said quietly. Excuse me? Thexvar looked shocked. I said no, Dae Kim repeated louder this time. Humanity will not surrender its freedom. We will not give up our colonies. We will not let you modify our genetics like we're animals to be bred. This is insane. This is tyranny. You do not have a choice, Quinla said coldly. We always have a choice, Dae Kim turned to leave. I'm returning to Earth to inform my government of this ultimatum. They will respond appropriately. You are not leaving. Thexvar gestured to the guards. Arrest him. Relian soldiers rushed toward the platform. Dae Kim raised his hands, trying to back away. You can't do this. I'm a diplomat. I have diplomatic immunity. Not anymore, Thexvar said. The first soldier grabbed Dae Kim's arm. Mira screamed from the doorway and tried to run to him, but more guards blocked her way. Dae Kim struggled against the soldier's grip, and in that moment of chaos, Thexvar made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Eliminate the human delegation, he ordered. All of them. The soldiers raised their weapons. Dae Kim had just enough time to look at Mira to mouth the words, I'm sorry, before the energy blasts lit up the chamber. The ambassador fell first, his body hitting the platform. The other human diplomats who had been waiting outside the chamber tried to run, but the guards cut them down in the corridors. Mira was the last to die, still trying to reach the man she had served with for 10 years. On the Meridian's edge, Yuna watched in horror. She had tapped into the station's security feeds, something the Council never knew human ships could do. She saw everything. The arrest, the order, the massacre. 12 humans dead in seconds, murdered in cold blood while trying to flee. Captain, what's happening? Juan asked, seeing the expression on her face. They killed them, Yuna whispered. They killed all of them. Alarms suddenly blared across the bridge. Multiple ships powering weapons. The sensor officer shouted. They're targeting us. Yuna's grief turned to ice-cold focus in an instant. Battle stations! Get me a link to Earth Command. Maximum priority, emergency encryption. Captain, they're jamming our communications. Then punch through the jamming. Yuna snapped. I don't care what you have to do. The ship shook as enemy fire struck their shields. The Meridian's Edge wasn't a warship. It was a diplomatic escort vessel with minimal weapons and armor. Against the Council fleet surrounding them, they had minutes at best. Link established. The communications officer announced. Record this and send it on repeat. Yuna pulled up the security footage of the massacre. Add this message, they drew first blood. Ambassador Kim and the entire delegation are dead. The Council has declared war on humanity. Protocol Nemesis is recommended. She uploaded the footage and hit send. The data burst out from her ship, riding a carrier wave that would punch through the jamming just long enough to reach the nearest human relay station. Message sent, Captain. Good, now get us out of here. Yuna gripped her command chair as the ship shook again. Full power to engines. Evasive pattern Delta 7. Don't let them get a clean shot. The Meridian's Edge turned hard, its engines flaring bright as it accelerated away from the Nexus station. Council ships pursued, firing continuously. One blast got through, tearing a hole in the port side. Atmosphere vented into space before emergency bulkheads sealed the breach. Hull breach on Deck 3. Casualties reported. Keep going, Yuna ordered. They just needed to reach the jump point. Just a few more minutes. Another impact. Then another. The ship was falling apart around them, but Yuna's crew held their positions, fought their systems, and kept the vessel moving. Jump point in 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. The Council ships were right behind them, still firing. Jump, now! Space twisted around them as the Meridian's Edge entered faster than light travel. The Council ships fell away, unable to follow without risking a collision in hyperspace. They were safe, for now. Yuna finally allowed herself to breathe. She looked around her damaged bridge at her injured crew and thought about the 12 people who had died on that station. Good people, peaceful people. People who had done nothing wrong except represent a species the Council feared. A message appeared on her screen. It was from Earth. 3 words that confirmed everything she had hoped for and feared. Protocol Nemesis activated. Come home. Yuna allowed herself a cold smile. The Council thought they had won. They thought killing the diplomats would frighten humanity into submission. They had no idea what was coming. They had no idea what humanity had been preparing for all these years. waiting for the day the Council would finally show its true face. That day had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Meridian's edge limped into Earth's orbit 3 days later. The ship looked like it had been through hell, with entire sections exposed to space and scorch marks covering the hull. Medical shuttles were already waiting to evacuate the wounded. But Captain Yuna Choi ignored the pain in her ribs and the exhaustion pulling at her bones. She had to report in person. Within an hour, she found herself standing in a room deep beneath Geneva, in a facility that officially didn't exist. The walls were bare metal, and the air had a recycled taste that told her they were far underground. Around a long table sat the people who truly ran humanity's military operations. Admiral Tae Hwang commanded Earth's United Defense Fleet. Director Gina Lee ran human intelligence operations. Colonel Sung Nam led the Ghost Legion, though most people had never heard of them, and Dr. Kwon-oh, whose official title was Chief Researcher. But everyone knew he built weapons the Council had forbidden. "Show us everything," Admiral Hwang said simply. Yuna played the footage from the Nexus station. The room watched in silence as Ambassador Dae Kim refused the Council's demands. They watched him try to leave. They watched the order to kill. They watched 12 humans die for the crime of saying no. When the footage ended, nobody spoke for a long moment. "They finally did it," Director Gina Lee said quietly. "After all these years of pushing, of testing boundaries, they finally crossed the line we knew they would cross." "How long until their fleet arrives?" Colonel Sung Nam asked. "Intelligence suggests 5 to 7 days, Director Lee replied. "They're assembling a peacekeeping force to blockade our system. 200 ships. They expect us to surrender the moment we see them." 200 ships, Dr. Kwon-oh laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They really think we're that easy?" Admiral Hwang stood up and walked to a wall panel. He pressed his palm against it and the wall slid open to reveal a massive display screen. It showed the solar system, but with hundreds of markers that shouldn't have been there. Markers in the Kuiper Belt, markers around Jupiter and Saturn, markers hiding in the asteroid belt. "Captain Choi," the Admiral said, "what you're about to learn is classified at the highest level. For the past 80 years, since we first joined the Council and saw how they really operated, we've been preparing. We knew this day would come. We knew they would never accept us as equals. So we built Protocol Nemesis." The display zoomed in on the Kuiper Belt. The markers there resolved into images of shipyards, massive construction facilities hidden in the darkness at the edge of the solar system. "We've been building a second fleet," Admiral Hwang continued. "Ships the Council doesn't know about. Ships with technology they think we don't have. We've been smiling and nodding at their restrictions while breaking every single one in secret." Yuna stared at the display in shock. There were hundreds of ships out there. Capital ships, carriers, destroyers, frigates, a whole navy hidden in plain sight. "How did you hide this from them?" she asked. Director Lee smiled. "The Council is arrogant. They believe they're superior to us in every way. They never imagined we could deceive them. Their inspectors only looked where we told them to look. Their satellites only monitored what we let them monitor. And their spies," she paused. "Well, we found all of them decades ago. We've been feeding them exactly what we wanted them to know. We also have other advantages," Dr. Kwon-oh added. He pulled up another display showing weapon systems. "The Council's technology is advanced, yes, but it's old. They haven't fought a real war in 300 years. They've grown comfortable. Meanwhile, we've been innovating. Quantum drives that let us move faster than they can track. Stealth systems that make our ships invisible to their sensors. Kinetic weapons accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. Cyber warfare tools that can crack their systems in seconds. And we have something they don't," Colonel Sung Nam said. "Motivation. They're fighting to maintain their power. We're fighting for our survival. There's a difference." Admiral Hwang turned back to Yuna. "Captain, I'm giving you a choice. You can take medical leave, recover from what you've been through, or you can take command of Carrier Group 7 and help us show the Council what happens when you back humans into a corner." Yuna thought of Ambassador Dae Kim. She thought of Mira Song. She thought of the 10 others who had died on that station. "I'll take the command, sir." "Good, get your people ready. The Council's fleet will be here in 6 days. We have work to do." Over the next 5 days, Earth transformed into a fortress. The hidden fleet moved into position. Weapons platforms activated throughout the solar system. Every human ship, civilian and military, prepared for war. And Director Gina Lee's intelligence operatives across the galaxy began the second phase of Protocol Nemesis. On colony worlds and space stations throughout Council space, human civilians who had lived there for years suddenly revealed themselves as trained agents. They started spreading information, videos of the massacre at the Nexus station, documents showing the Council's corruption, evidence of species that had been suppressed or eliminated, the truth about what the Council really was. Some species listened, others didn't, but seeds of doubt began to grow. On the 6th day, the Council fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system. 200 warships, the largest fleet humanity had ever seen. They arranged themselves in a blockade formation around the system's outer reaches. Their commander, a Vrelian general named Raxel, sent a message to Earth. Humans of Earth, you have been declared rogue by the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately. Deactivate your military vessels. Prepare to receive Council administrators. If you comply, you will be treated fairly. If you resist, you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond. In the underground command center, Admiral Huang read the message and smiled. Treated fairly? Like they treated our diplomats fairly. He opened a channel to the entire United Defense Fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Huang. Execute Protocol Nemesis. Show them what humanity really is. Throughout the solar system, human ships activated, but they didn't move to engage the Council fleet. Instead, they disappeared. Quantum drives engaged, stealth systems activated, and 200 human vessels simply vanished from sensors. On the Council flagship, General Raxel stared at his displays in confusion. Where did they go? Find them. His sensor officers worked frantically, but there was nothing. The human ships had simply ceased to exist as far as their instruments could tell. Sir, we're detecting unusual readings from the Kuiper Belt. What kind of readings? Power signatures. Massive ones. Something's out there. Before Raxel could respond, his ship shook violently. Alarms blared across the bridge. We're under attack. Multiple impacts. From where? I don't see anything. But the attacks kept coming. Invisible ships striking from impossible angles. Kinetic rounds moving so fast they punched straight through shields and armor. The Council fleet tried to return fire, but they couldn't see their targets. It was like fighting ghosts. Then the cyber attacks began. Council ships found their systems shutting down, their weapons offline, their shields failing. Human hackers trained for decades in breaking alien computer systems tore through Council security like it was paper. All ships break formation. Take evasive action, General Raxel ordered, but it was too late. The human fleet had chosen their targets carefully. Command ships first, then carriers, then ships with the most advanced sensors. Within 15 minutes, the Council's fleet coordination collapsed into chaos, and then the hidden fleet revealed itself. Hundreds of human warships appeared from the Kuiper Belt, emerging from hiding like wolves from the darkness. At their center was a ship unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The Unbroken Will, humanity's first dreadnought. 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, powered by reactors that violated every Council regulation. Commander Boris Shin sat in the captain's chair of the massive vessel, watching the Council fleet scramble in panic. All weapons fire at will. The Unbroken Will opened fire, and the space around it lit up like a new sun. Antimatter warheads, particle beams, railguns firing projectiles at relativistic speeds. 30 Council ships simply ceased to exist in the first salvo. The battle became a slaughter. The Council had numbers and size, but humanity had speed, stealth, and ruthless efficiency. They had trained for this moment. They had prepared, and they were angry. Captain Yuna Choi led her carrier group in a flanking maneuver, her strike craft swarming through the Council formation. Colonel Sung Nam's Ghost Legion boarded the Council flagship through a hull breach, fighting their way to the bridge. When they reached General Raxel, Colonel Sung Nam transmitted everything on an open channel so the entire galaxy could see. This is what happens when you mistake patience for weakness, he said, then gave the order to take the general prisoner. By the end of the battle, only 17 Council ships escaped. 183 were destroyed or captured. Humanity lost 6 vessels. The galaxy watched in shock as the species everyone had dismissed as primitive utterly destroyed a superior force. Admiral Huang sent a message to every system in Council space. His voice was calm, but his words carried the weight of a species that had finally had enough. For 120 years, we tried peace. We followed your laws. We accepted your restrictions. We swallowed our pride. You mistook our patience for weakness. You mistook our restraint for inability. That ends now. Humanity is done asking for permission. We will no longer accept your tyranny. We will no longer bow to your counsel. Any species that wishes to live in peace with us will find us fair and honorable. Any species that threatens us will learn what we're truly capable of. Choose wisely. The message ended, and across human space, fleets began moving out, not to conquer, not to occupy, but to strike at every council military base within reach. The war had begun, and humanity intended to win it. In her ready room aboard her carrier, Yuna looked at a photo of Ambassador Dae Kim she had saved. "We're making it worth it," she whispered. "I promise. The galaxy would never be the same." The Council had wanted to see humanity's true nature. Now they would get their wish. The war spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within 2 weeks of the Battle of Sol, human forces had struck 12 major Council installations. They didn't fight like the Council expected. There were no grand fleet battles over strategic planets, no attempts to hold territory. Instead, humanity struck fast and hard, destroying supply depots, manufacturing centers, and communication relays before vanishing back into the void. Commodore Yuna Choi stood on the bridge of her flagship, now designated Strike Group 7. Around her, holographic displays showed the locations of Council targets throughout the sector. Her orders were simple: make the Council bleed. Make them afraid. Make them understand that they had awakened something terrible. Target confirmed. Lieutenant Juan Park reported. Council ammunition depot at Terex 4. Minimal defense fleet. 3 frigates and a destroyer. How many Council species rely on that depot? Yuna asked. Intelligence says it supplies 17 forward operating bases. If we destroy it, those bases will run out of ammunition within a month. Yuna nodded. Then we destroy it. All ships prepare for quantum jump. We hit them in 3 minutes and we're gone in 5. Her strike group jumped into the system, weapons already hot. The Council ships barely had time to raise shields before human missiles tore through them. Yuna's carriers launched their strike craft, and within minutes the depot's orbital platforms were burning wreckage. The facility on the planet's surface tried to activate its shields, but human cyber warfare specialists had already infiltrated their systems. The shields never came online. Plant the charges and pull back, Yuna ordered. Her boarding teams had landed on the facility, placing demolition charges throughout the ammunition storage areas. When they detonated, the explosion could be seen from orbit, a mushroom cloud rising into the atmosphere. All teams recovered. No casualties. Jump us out. Next target. Strike Group 7 vanished as quickly as it had arrived, leaving nothing but debris and flames behind. Across the galaxy, similar strikes happened every day. Human forces were everywhere and nowhere. They would appear, destroy something critical, and disappear before reinforcements could arrive. The Council's military leadership scrambled to respond, but they were always one step behind. Director Gina Lee watched the chaos unfold from her operations center on Earth. Dozens of screens showed intelligence reports, intercepted communications, and real-time updates from human operatives throughout Council space. This was her war, fought not with ships and guns but with information and psychology. "How are our propaganda efforts progressing?" she asked her deputy. "Better than expected. The massacre at Nexus Station has been seen by billions across the galaxy. Support for the Council is dropping, especially among younger populations. We're seeing protest movements on 8 Council worlds. And the minor species? 3 have already withdrawn from the Council. The Kalari, Morthans, and Prixians. They've declared neutrality. 5 more are considering it." Gina Lee smiled. This was exactly what Protocol Nemesis had planned for. The Council maintained power through a carefully constructed image of invincibility and moral authority. Humanity's job was to shatter that image, show the galaxy that the Council was neither invincible nor moral, show them that resistance was possible, increase our outreach to the species still on the fence, show them what the Council really thinks of them. I want every secret, every insult, every private communication where Council leaders called them inferior or primitive. Make it personal. While the information war raged, Colonel Sung Nam and his Ghost Legion conducted a different kind of warfare. They moved through Council space like shadows, striking at the people rather than the infrastructure. Council governors found themselves arrested in their own homes, tried by military tribunals, and sentenced for war crimes. Council admirals disappeared from their flagships only to appear days later in human custody, spilling everything they knew about Council operations. On the planet Vrex Prime, Colonel Sung Nam led a team of 20 operatives through the underground tunnels beneath the planetary capital. Their target was Governor Thelman, a Vrelian administrator responsible for ordering the bombardment of a rebellious colony world 3 years earlier. Thousands had died in that attack, but the council had covered it up. Teams in position, Sung Nam whispered into his communicator. His people had spent 2 weeks infiltrating the capital, learning the governor's routines, mapping the security systems. Tonight, they would strike. They emerged in the governor's residence through a maintenance shaft. The guards never saw them coming. Sung Nam's team moved through the building in perfect silence, neutralizing security personnel with tranquilizer darts. Within 5 minutes, they stood in the governor's bedroom. Thelman woke up to find a gun pointed at his face. "What is this? Who are you?" "Ghost Legion," Sung Nam replied. "You're under arrest for war crimes against civilian populations. You can't do this. I have diplomatic immunity." "Not anymore." Sung Nam's team hauled the governor to his feet and dragged him back through the tunnels. By morning, he was on a human ship headed for trial. The council's security forces found no trace of how the operatives had gotten in or out. It was as if ghosts had taken him. But the council wasn't just sitting back and accepting defeat. They struck back with increasing brutality. When they couldn't find human military targets, they went after civilians. A council fleet bombarded a human mining colony on Kepler 62e, killing 15,000 people. They deployed chemical weapons on another colony world, forcing the evacuation of an entire city. They publicly executed human prisoners of war, broadcasting the killings across the galaxy as a warning. Each atrocity only made humanity fight harder. Commander Bora Shin's dreadnought, the Unbroken Will, became the centerpiece of human fleet operations. The massive ship could take punishment that would destroy any other vessel, and could dish out even more in return. When council forces tried to retake a strategic system at Kepler's gate, Bora Shin was there to stop them. The council had assembled 70 ships for the attack, including 2 of their precious carriers. They expected the system's defenders to retreat in the face of such overwhelming force. Instead, they found the Unbroken Will waiting for them. "All ships hold position," Bora Shin ordered her fleet. She had only 15 ships under her command, but she didn't need more. "Let them come to us." The council fleet advanced confidently, their commander convinced that numbers would win the day. They opened fire at maximum range, sending thousands of missiles and energy beams toward the human formation. "Shields holding," her tactical officer reported. "Minor damage to cruiser Defiant. Return fire. Target their carriers first." The Unbroken Will's weapons were unlike anything else in the galaxy. Antimatter warheads that released the energy of small stars, particle accelerators that fired beams capable of cutting through any shield, and railguns that could launch projectiles at 30% the speed of light. When the dreadnought fired, space itself seemed to tear apart. The first council carrier exploded, its hull unable to withstand the concentrated fire. The second tried to retreat but was too slow. Within minutes, both carriers were debris. "They're breaking formation," Bora Shin's sensor officer reported. "The council fleet is scattering. Don't let them escape. All ships pursue and destroy." The battle turned into a hunt. Human ships, faster and more maneuverable, chased down the fleeing council vessels one by one. Of the 70 ships that had entered the system, only 12 made it out. But the council had learned something from the engagement. They realized that fighting humanity conventionally was suicide. They needed something different, something that would end the war in one stroke. In the council's core territory, deep within the Vrel Forge station, scientists worked around the clock on a new weapon. It was called the Final Solution, a name that made even some council members uncomfortable. The weapon was a self-replicating nanomachine swarm designed to target human DNA specifically. Once released into Earth's atmosphere, it would spread across the planet, killing every human within weeks. The machines would replicate using the resources from human bodies themselves, ensuring complete coverage. The project was top secret, known only to the highest levels of council leadership. They couldn't let humanity discover it. They couldn't let other species learn what they were willing to do to win, but secrets are hard to keep in wartime. Dr. Su Lim, a human scientist working undercover as a maintenance technician on the Vrel Forge, had infiltrated the facility months ago. She had spent weeks piecing together fragments of information, trying to understand what the station was really building. When she finally learned the truth, she barely managed to contain her horror. She sent an emergency transmission to Earth using a quantum communicator hidden in her quarters. The message was short. They're building a genocide weapon. Targets human DNA specifically. Must destroy Vrel Forge before completion. Time frame unknown. The message reached Director Gina Lee within hours. She immediately called an emergency meeting with Admiral Huang and Colonel Sung Nam. How certain are we of this intelligence? Admiral Huang asked. Dr. Lim has been reliable for 3 years. If she says this weapon exists, I believe her. Colonel Sung Nam studied a holographic display of the Vrel Forge. The station is deep in Council territory. Getting there will be difficult. Getting out might be impossible. And it's the most heavily defended installation in the galaxy. 300 ships patrol the area, and the station itself has enough firepower to hold off an entire fleet. We don't have a choice, Gina Lee said. If they complete this weapon and deploy it, Earth dies. All our colonies die. Humanity becomes extinct. Admiral Huang stood up and walked to the display. He zoomed in on the forge, studying its defenses. Then we go in. We assemble our best ships, our best people, and we destroy that station, even if it costs us everything. It might cost us everything, Colonel Sung Nam pointed out. This could be a one-way mission. I know, Admiral Huang replied. But what choice do we have? We either try and possibly die, or we do nothing and definitely die. I prefer the first option. Within days, humanity's military began assembling a strike force for the most dangerous mission of the war. They would need to travel deep into enemy territory, fight through the largest defensive fleet ever assembled, destroy a heavily fortified station, and somehow make it home alive. Commodore Yuna Choi volunteered immediately. So did Commander Bora Shin. Colonel Sung Nam was already planning the ground assault. Across human space, ships and crews prepared for what might be humanity's last stand. The Council thought they were winning. They thought their new weapon would end the threat humanity posed. They had no idea that their most closely guarded secret had already been compromised. They had no idea that humanity was coming for them with everything they had. The fate of the entire human species would be decided at the Vrel Forge. The strike force assembled at a hidden human base in the outer reaches of Council space. 50 ships handpicked from the best crews humanity had. At the center of the formation sat the Unbroken Will, its massive hull covered in fresh battle scars from a dozen engagements. Commodore Yuna Choi commanded the carrier group. Commander Bora Shin piloted the dreadnought. Colonel Sung Nam and his Ghost Legion prepared their boarding equipment. Everyone knew the odds. Most of them didn't expect to come back, but humanity had one unexpected advantage. 3 days before the mission launched, a Council ship entered human space broadcasting a white flag signal. It was a Kalari cruiser, one of the species that had withdrawn from the Council after the Nexus Station massacre. The ship's commander requested permission to speak with human leadership. Envoy Hai Wan met with the Kalari commander on a neutral station. Hai Wan was humanity's best diplomat, skilled at reading alien body language and finding common ground even with species that seemed completely different. The Kalari commander's name was Kelthar, and he had once been an admiral in the Council fleet before his species declared independence. "Why are you here?" Hai Wan asked directly. Humans had learned that most alien species appreciated directness more than the careful word games the Council preferred. Kelthar spread his 4 arms in a gesture of openness. Because the Council has become everything my people once fought against. When we joined them 500 years ago, they promised peace and cooperation. Instead, we found tyranny and control. Your species showed us that resistance is possible. Now we wish to help. Help how? I know you're planning to attack the Vrel Forge. I was part of the team that designed its defenses 20 years ago. I can give you the station schematics, the patrol patterns, the weaknesses in the defensive grid, everything you need to have a chance of success. Hai Wan studied the alien carefully. Why would you betray your former allies? They stopped being my allies when they decided to build a weapon designed for genocide. The Council has done terrible things over the centuries, but this crosses a line even they should not cross. If they succeed in destroying humanity, what species will be next? Mine? The Morthans? Anyone who dares to question their authority? Hai Wan made a decision. Come with me. There are people you need to meet. Within hours, Kelthar stood before Admiral Huang, Director Gina Lee, and the mission commanders. He brought detailed information about the Vrel Forge, including something humanity hadn't known. The weapon wasn't complete yet. They had perhaps 2 weeks before it would be ready for deployment. There's something else you should know, Kelthar said. My species isn't the only one questioning the Council. The Morthans have a resistance movement. The Prixians are close to open rebellion. There are others throughout Council space who are tired of living under the Council's control. If you can destroy the Forge and prove that the Council can be defeated, others will join you. Director Gina Lee leaned forward. Can you get us in contact with these resistance movements? I can. The Morthans in particular have ships and soldiers ready to fight. They're waiting for the right moment. Then contact them, Admiral Huang said. Tell them the moment is now. The mission to the Vrel Forge became something bigger. It wasn't just a human operation anymore. Kelthar brought 12 Kalari ships crewed by volunteers. The Morthans sent 20 vessels loaded with soldiers and engineers. Even some Prixian industrial ships joined. Their cargo holds full of ammunition and supplies. It wasn't a large fleet by Council standards, but it represented something more important. It represented unity among species that had been divided for centuries. The combined fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading for the heart of Council territory. They traveled through rarely used routes, avoiding main shipping lanes where Council patrols might spot them. It took them 3 days to reach the outer system where the Vrel Forge orbited a dying red giant star. All ships, listen carefully, Admiral Huang transmitted to the entire fleet. He had taken personal command of the mission, understanding that this might be humanity's most critical moment. The Forge is defended by 300 Council ships and the station's own weapons. We are outnumbered 6-1, but we have surprise, we have determination, and we have allies who believe in our cause. We're not fighting for conquest. We're fighting for survival, for freedom, for the right to exist. Make every shot count. Fight smart. And if this is our last battle, let's make it one the galaxy never forgets. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Immediately, alarms blared across the bridge of the Unbroken Will. Council fleet detected. 287 vessels. They're moving to intercept. So much for surprise, Borishin muttered. All weapons prepare to fire. Let's show them what we brought. The Council fleet advanced in a standard defensive formation, clearly expecting the attackers to retreat in the face of such overwhelming numbers. Instead, the combined fleet charged straight at them. They're insane, the Council fleet commander reported to the Vrel Forge. The humans are attacking. Destroy them, came the reply. All of them. The two fleets collided in a storm of fire and metal. The Unbroken Will took the center position, absorbing massive amounts of fire while its weapons carved holes through the Council formation. Yuna's carrier group launched wave after wave of strike craft, overwhelming Council point defenses. The Kalari ships, with their advanced shields, protected the more vulnerable human vessels. The Morthans, known for their skill in close-quarters combat, pushed their ships right into the enemy formation, firing at point-blank range. We're taking heavy casualties, Yuna's tactical officer reported. 4 human ships were already destroyed, and many others were damaged. We can't sustain this. We don't need to sustain it, Yuna replied. We just need to break through. Colonel Sung Nam, are you ready? On a stealth transport ship hidden among the larger vessels, Colonel Sung Nam checked his equipment one last time. His Ghost Legion plus 50 Morthan commandos were packed into the transport's cargo bay. Their mission was simple but nearly impossible. Get onto the Vrel Forge, fight through its defenders, find the weapon, and destroy it. Ready when you are, Commodore. Launching you in 30 seconds. Good luck. The transport shot forward using the chaos of the battle as cover. Its stealth systems made it almost invisible, and the Council ships were too busy with the main fleet to notice one small vessel slipping through their lines. Within minutes, the transport had reached the Forge's hull. Attaching now, the pilot reported. Magnetic clamps locked the ship to the station's outer armor. You've got 10 minutes before their security systems detect us. Sung Nam's team cut through the hull using plasma torches, creating an entry point into the station's maintenance corridors. They poured through the opening, weapons ready. The first Council security team they encountered didn't even have time to raise the alarm before they were eliminated. Stay quiet. Stay fast, Sung Nam whispered to his team. We don't want them to know we're here until we're already at the weapon. They moved through the station like shadows, using the schematics Kelthar had provided. The Vrel Forge was massive, a city in space with thousands of workers and soldiers. But Sung Nam's team knew exactly where to go. They had studied the layout for days, memorizing every corridor and junction. Outside, the space battle raged on. The Unbroken Will had taken critical damage to its port side, and fires burned throughout several decks. But Borashin refused to retreat. Her ship was the anchor holding the formation together. If she pulled back, the entire fleet would collapse. Reactor approaching critical levels, her chief engineer reported. We need to reduce power to weapons or risk a meltdown. Negative. Keep everything online. We're not done yet. A Council dreadnought, nearly as large as the Unbroken Will, pushed through the battle line and opened fire at close range. The impact threw Borashin from her chair. Emergency systems kicked in, and damage reports flooded the bridge. Hull breach on decks 7 through 12. Shields at 15%. Port weapons offline. Borashin pulled herself back into her seat, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. Ramming speed. Point us at that dreadnought. Commander, we'll never survive a collision. We don't need to survive. We need to win. Do it. The Unbroken Will surged forward, its engines screaming as they pushed beyond safe limits. The Council dreadnought tried to turn away, but it was too slow. The two massive ships collided with an impact that registered on sensors across the system. The Council ship crumpled, its reactor detonating in the explosion that consumed both vessels. Yuna watched in horror as the Unbroken Will disappeared in a ball of fire. Bora respond. Commander Shin, do you copy? There was no answer. Commander Borashin and her entire crew were gone, sacrificed to take down the enemy's most powerful ship. But her sacrifice gave them the opening they needed. The Council fleet, shocked by the loss of their dreadnought, fell back in confusion. The combined fleet pushed forward, reaching the Vrel Forge itself. Inside the station, Sung Nam's team had reached the weapon laboratory. They encountered heavy resistance as they fought through the facility's security forces. The Morthan commandos proved their worth, their natural strength and combat skills overwhelming the Council guards, but casualties mounted. By the time they reached the central chamber where the weapon was stored, Sung Nam had lost half his team. The weapon itself looked deceptively simple. Dozens of containment vessels filled with nanomachines, each one capable of replicating and spreading across an entire planet. A control system designed to target specific DNA sequences, launch systems ready to deploy the swarm. Plant the charges, Sung Nam ordered. We're destroying everything. But as his team placed the explosives, alarms blared throughout the facility. They know we're here, one of his soldiers reported. We've got incoming forces. A lot of them. Sung Nam worked quickly, connecting the charges to a remote detonator. But as he finished, he noticed something on the weapon's control panel. A failsafe. If the weapon was destroyed while the nanomachines were active, they would automatically deploy. The incomplete swarm would scatter into space, potentially endangering any ship in the area. There's a failsafe, he said quietly. I need to override the targeting system before we blow this place. How long will that take? 5 minutes. Maybe 10. We don't have that long. Sung Nam looked at his remaining team members. Get out of here. Get back to the transport. I'll finish this. Colonel, we're not leaving you. That's an order. Sung Nam pulled up the weapons interface, his fingers flying across the controls. Go now. His team hesitated, then slowly moved toward the exit. The Morthan commander stayed behind for a moment. Die well, human. I intend to, Sung Nam replied. He worked frantically as Council soldiers poured into the facility. He had to rewrite the weapon's targeting parameters, changing it from human DNA to Council genetic markers. If the failsafe activated, the Council would face their own weapon instead of humanity. Gunfire erupted around him. He felt pain as energy blasts struck his body, but he kept working. Just a few more seconds. Just a little more time. The last line of code executed. The targeting system accepted the new parameters. Sung Nam activated the detonator. The explosion consumed the entire laboratory section of the Vrel Forge. The weapon's containment vessels shattered, releasing the nanomachine swarm. But instead of targeting humans, they now sought Council DNA. The incomplete machine scattered into space, a dormant threat that would activate if anyone tried to rebuild. The explosion at the Vrel Forge sent shockwaves through the entire system. Half the station tore itself apart, the internal detonation spreading from section to section. The Council fleet, caught between the station's destruction and the attacking forces, broke formation completely. Some ships tried to rescue personnel from the dying station. Others attempted to retreat. A few surrendered outright, their commanders realizing the war was lost. Commodore Yuna Choi watched the forge burn on her displays. She thought about Commander Borishin, who had sacrificed herself and her entire crew. She thought about Colonel Sung Nam, who had stayed behind to finish the mission. She thought about all the people who had died to reach this moment. The price had been terrible, but they had succeeded. All ships cease fire, she transmitted to the fleet. Except surrenders. Rescue survivors. The battle is over. But the war wasn't over yet. The Council still controlled hundreds of systems and thousands of ships. The Nexus Station still stood as their seat of power. High Arbiter Quinla and the remaining Council leaders still believed they could win. They retreated to the heavily defended core systems, rallying their loyalist species for one final stand. Director Gina Lee watched the intelligence reports flowing in from across the galaxy. The destruction of the Vrel Forge had broken something fundamental in the Council's authority. 3 more species declared independence within days. Resistance movements on a dozen worlds erupted into open rebellion. Even some Vrelian commanders were questioning their orders, unwilling to continue fighting for a cause that included genocide weapons. "We need to end this before more people die," Gina Lee told Admiral Huang. "The Council leadership won't surrender. They'll drag this war out for years if we let them." "Then we take the Nexus Station," Admiral Huang replied. "We capture the Council leadership and put them on trial. Show the galaxy that no one is above justice." Envoy Heywan had spent the weeks after the Vrel Forge coordinating with the growing Free Coalition. What had started as 3 species had grown to 15. The Kalari provided advanced technology. The Morthans contributed their soldiers. The Prixians offered their industrial capacity. Other species brought what they could, united by a common desire for freedom from Council tyranny. "We're assembling a fleet larger than anything the Council has ever faced," Haiwan reported to human leadership. 2,000 ships from 20 different species. But we need to be careful. We're not trying to replace the Council's empire with our own. We're trying to build something better. "What do you suggest?" Admiral Huang asked. "Let me go to the Nexus Station first. Let me offer them one final chance to surrender. If they refuse, then we attack. But we give them the choice. We show the galaxy that we're better than they are." Admiral Huang considered this. Every instinct told him to strike now while the Council was weak. But Heywan was right. How they won mattered as much as winning itself. "Go, offer them terms. But Heywan, be careful. They killed Ambassador Dae Kim when he tried to leave peacefully. They might try the same with you." "I know," Heywan said. "That's why Commodore Choi will be right outside with the fleet, ready to come get me if things go wrong." 3 days later, Haiwan's shuttle approached the Nexus Station. The station looked different than it had months ago. Damage from minor attacks scarred its hull. Fewer ships patrolled the area. The sense of invincibility that had once surrounded the Council's seat of power was gone. Yuna's fleet waited at the edge of the system, 2,000 ships representing the Free Coalition. They were ready to attack on her signal. But they hoped it wouldn't come to that. Inside the Council chambers, Haiwan stood where Ambassador Dae Kim had stood so many months ago. The same counselors looked down at her from their elevated seats, though their faces showed fear now instead of arrogance. High Arbiter Quinla sat in her highest seat, but her usual confidence had cracked. "You come here with demands?" Quinla asked coldly. "You who have killed thousands of Council citizens? You who have destroyed our installations and turned species against us?" "I come here with an offer," Heywan replied calmly. "The war can end today. No more death. No more destruction. The Council leadership surrenders and stands trial for war crimes. In exchange, we guarantee the safety of all Council citizens. We guarantee that no species will face retaliation. We help rebuild what has been destroyed." Councillor Thexivar, who had ordered the death of Ambassador Dae Kim, stood angrily. "You offer us nothing but humiliation."
"We are the Galactic Council."
"We have ruled for 1,000 years. And in those 1,000 years, how many species did you oppress?" Heywan asked. "How many did you eliminate when they refused to submit? How many technologies did you suppress because they threatened your control? The galaxy knows the truth now. The question is whether you end this with dignity or whether you force us to drag you out." "We will never surrender," Quinla said. "We have activated every defense. We have called every loyal ship. You may have won some battles, but you cannot take this station." Heywan looked at the High Arbiter sadly. "Then you choose the hard way." She turned to leave, half expecting to be shot in the back like Ambassador Dae Kim. But the Council let her go. Perhaps they weren't quite ready to make the same mistake twice. Or perhaps they simply wanted her to carry their defiance back to the Coalition fleet. When HFY's shuttle cleared the station, Yuna received the signal. They refused. Prepare for assault. The Coalition fleet moved forward as one. 2,000 ships from 20 species united in purpose. The Council's defensive fleet numbered only 300, the remnants of their once mighty military. But they fought with desperate courage, knowing this was their last stand. The battle for the Nexus station was brutal. Unlike previous engagements where humanity had won through speed and surprise, this was a grinding slugging match. Both sides had nowhere to retreat. This would be decided by determination and sacrifice. Yuna led her carrier group through the defensive lines, her strike craft engaging Council fighters in swirling dogfights. Kalari cruisers pushed forward with their powerful shields, absorbing fire meant for more vulnerable ships. Morthan warriors boarded enemy vessels fighting deck by deck. Prixian support ships kept damaged Coalition vessels in the fight with emergency repairs. The Council fought back desperately. They knew what capture meant. They knew they would face trial for their crimes. Some chose to fight to the death rather than surrender. Others, seeing the inevitable outcome, powered down their weapons and accepted their fate. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, the Nexus station's defenses were shattered. Coalition Marines, led by the remaining Ghost Legion soldiers, breached the station. They fought through the corridors, pushing toward the Council chambers. Yuna personally led the team that reached the chambers. The grand doors, which had seemed so imposing when Ambassador Dae Kim entered them, now hung broken and scarred. Inside, the Council members waited. Some looked defiant. Others looked resigned. High Arbiter Quinla stood from her seat, her 3 eyes fixed on Yuna. "You think you've won?" she asked. "You think removing us will bring peace? The galaxy will descend into chaos without the Council's guidance. Species will war against each other. Technology will be misused. Everything we built will collapse." "Everything you built was a lie," Yuna replied. "You maintained peace through oppression. You prevented war by crushing anyone who resisted. That's not peace. That's tyranny." She gestured to her soldiers. "Arrest them all. They'll stand trial for their crimes." Quinla reached for something at her belt and Yuna's soldiers raised their weapons. But it wasn't a weapon. It was a detonator. "If the Council falls, the galaxy falls," Quinla said. "I've activated the station's self-destruct system. The neutron star's containment field will collapse. Everything within 100 light-years will be destroyed. Better to destroy it all than let lesser species rule." Yuna felt her blood turn cold. Millions of people lived within that radius. Dozens of inhabited worlds. The Nexus station was located at a major trade hub precisely because so many systems were nearby. "You're insane," Yuna said. "I'm practical," Quinla replied. "Now let us go or I press this button and we all die together." But before anyone could move, Director Gina Lee's voice came through Yuna's communicator. "Commodore, we've deactivated the detonator remotely." "Quinla's bluffing now." Yuna smiled grimly. "Director Lee has been inside your systems for weeks. Every code, every security measure. We've been 3 steps ahead of you this entire time." Quinla looked at the detonator in her hand, pressed the button, and nothing happened. Her face showed disbelief, then fear. "No, this isn't possible." "Arrest her," Yuna ordered. Coalition soldiers moved forward and took the Council leadership into custody. They were led away in restraints, the counselors who had ruled the galaxy for centuries, now prisoners facing justice. Some went quietly. Others screamed threats and promises of revenge. But they all went. The war was over. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to heal. The Council leadership stood trial on dozens of worlds, facing the species they had oppressed. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy, transparent and fair. The evidence was overwhelming. Genocide attempts, suppression of technology, execution of diplomats, orbital bombardment of civilian populations. The list went on. Some were sentenced to life imprisonment. A few, including Thexvar and Quinla, were executed for their crimes. Not out of revenge, but because justice demanded it. The Free Coalition began the work of building a new galactic government. They held assemblies where every species had an equal voice regardless of size or power. They established laws protecting individual rights and preventing the concentration of power that had corrupted the Council. They called it the Unity Assembly, and Envoy Haiwan helped draft its founding charter. The charter's first principle was simple: Government exists to serve the people, not to rule them. Admiral Huang established a new defense doctrine for humanity and its allies. Military strength would be maintained, but it would serve to protect freedom, not to impose will. There would be no more surprise attacks on peaceful diplomats. No more genocide weapons. No more oppression disguised as guidance. Across the galaxy, memorials were built for those who had died in the war. In Geneva, a monument honored Ambassador Day Kim and the 12 diplomats killed at the Nexus station. On Mars, a memorial wall listed every human who had fallen in the conflict, including Commander Bora Shin and Colonel Sung Nam. Similar monuments appeared on Kalari worlds, Morthan colonies, and Prixian stations. The dead were remembered not as conquerors, but as liberators. 6 months after the war ended, the Nexus station was rebuilt and renamed Unity Station. Representatives from over 100 species worked there now, cooperating on trade agreements, scientific research, and mutual defense. The circular chamber where the council had once sat was converted into a museum, preserved as a reminder of what happens when power corrupts. Commodore Yuna Choi stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, looking out at the ships arriving and departing. Vessels from dozens of worlds trading freely and traveling without fear. Children of different species played together in the station's parks. Scientists from multiple civilizations collaborated in research facilities. It wasn't perfect. There were still disputes and disagreements, but they were resolved through discussion, not domination. She thought about the last words Ambassador Day Kim had said before trying to leave the council chambers. Do better than them. They had done better. They had won the war not just through superior tactics or advanced weapons, but through showing the galaxy a better way. They had proven that different species could work together as equals. That freedom was worth fighting for. That justice applied to everyone, even those who believed themselves above it. A message appeared on her datapad. It was from Earth. They were promoting her to admiral and offering her command of humanity's defense fleet. But the message included a personal note from Admiral Huang. The war is over, but the work of maintaining peace never ends. We need people like you to ensure we never become what we fought against. Yuna smiled and accepted the promotion. The galaxy had been freed from tyranny, but freedom required constant vigilance. Humanity had learned that lesson at terrible cost. They would not forget it. She looked back at the stars, at the vast galaxy full of countless worlds and species. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited. New threats would emerge. But the galaxy was united now in ways it had never been before. And humanity, the species the Council had called primitive and dangerous, had shown everyone what they truly were. They were survivors. They were fighters. They were builders. And they were free. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly how it should be.